But yeah, look at this. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is overall terrible. I mean, it's just nonstop of like these critics saying this movie stinks. Like, it is the worst thing. Why did I waste my time? It goes on and on.
Five Nights at Freddy's 2 wasn't meant to implode this fast. The sequel arrived with huge hype, yet within hours theaters emptied and streams stalled as viewers walked away. What should have been a win became a sudden free fall, with numbers crashing so hard fans joked the viewership hit zero. Critics ripped the film apart while longtime fans said the story felt twisted and the lore missing. The meltdown spread across the community, and all eyes locked onto one name: Scott Cawthon, the creator who built the entire universe and now watched it fall apart. Scott stayed silent at first, which only fueled confusion as the viewership kept dropping. Fans argued over whether he approved the changes, unaware he had already fought behind the scenes to protect the story. That fight became the turning point. Scott stepped forward because his creation had been pushed into something he no longer recognized. As the movie collapsed and fans walked away, he confronted the creators directly, a moment that sent shockwaves through the entire FNAF world.
Am I the biggest Five Nights at Freddy's fan in the world? Nope. But, did I see the first film? Yes. Did I like it? No. But, I could understand why others did. So, I just saw the second film. Did I like it? Nope. But this time, I can't understand why others seem to like it.
No one expected the sequel to crash this fast. The first movie built heavy trust, so fans believed the next chapter would dive deeper into the story they loved. Hype exploded everywhere with frame-by-frame trailer breakdowns and theories spreading non-stop. Premiere night started strong. The tension felt right, the animatronics looked solid, and the tone matched the world fans remembered. But the story fell apart quickly. Characters drifted, pacing broke, and key lore pieces vanished or were replaced with ideas that didn't fit at all. Reactions hit the internet immediately. Viewers walked out, shut streams off, and posted that the movie felt nothing like Scott's world. Anger spread fast as timelines filled with questions like what happened and why does nothing make sense?
And unfortunately, I simply don't think that that's the movie that they delivered. It just kind of felt like an empty film. That there just wasn't much there at all on any level.
By the end of opening night, the numbers collapsed. Attendance dropped, streams stalled, and fans joked the viewership had hit zero. FNAF 2 wasn't slipping. It was sinking in real time. And the crash made one thing clear. Something behind the scenes had gone wrong long before release. Critics didn't hold back once reactions started rolling in. Review scores sank instantly, with headlines calling the movie empty and directionless. YouTube reviewers posted breakdowns pointing out scenes that felt rushed and decisions that didn't match the tone of the series. Their thumbnails alone fueled more backlash, pushing the collapse even faster. Fans made side-by-side edits comparing the original lore to what the movie delivered. Entire story threads were missing, while new scenes felt stapled in without purpose. The more people watched, the more confusion grew across the community. Every post added pressure, and the viewership numbers kept dropping. What hurt most was how fast trust broke. The first movie had given people hope that Hollywood finally understood FNAF's world, but this sequel shattered that feeling in one night. Even longtime supporters admitted they couldn't defend what they saw. The backlash was spreading faster than the studio could react. By the next morning, the situation was impossible to hide. Viewership plunged so sharply that forums joked the movie had flatlined, but frustration wasn't aimed only at the film. Fans wanted someone to blame, and they turned straight toward the man who created everything. The community didn't wait for answers. They assumed Scott had approved every change, every rewrite, every strange shift in lore. Posts accused him of stepping aside, losing control, or letting the studio twist the story. The pressure hit hard because fans believed he allowed the movie to drift away from the world he built. The studio added fuel without realizing it. A public comment suggested Scott supported the direction of the film, and that line spread everywhere. With the viewership collapse already in motion, the blame amplified. Fans thought he turned his back on the series at its most important moment. But the truth wasn't what they imagined. Leaks started to appear showing Scott had almost no real control over this sequel. Major decisions were made without him, and his suggestions were pushed aside. The more information surfaced, the more fans realized they had aimed their anger at the wrong person. That shift changed everything. Instead of accusing Scott, fans began to wonder what happened behind closed doors and why he had stayed silent. And that silence didn't last long because Scott's next move flipped the entire conversation overnight. Scott broke his silence with one unexpected move. His personal site went dark except for a single line glowing in white text. "You can change the story, but you can't erase the truth." That one sentence hit harder than any full statement because it sounded like a direct response to the movie's direction. Screenshots spread across every platform within minutes. Fans who thought Scott abandoned them suddenly saw a message that felt like a warning, a challenge, and a confession all at once. It reignited hope and turned frustration into full support. The backlash shifted away from Scott and straight toward the creators of the sequel. Old interviews surfaced showing how much the series meant to him. YouTubers who grew up with the games posted emotional videos defending his vision. The movement grew faster than the studio could understand, and every share of his message pushed viewership even lower. That cryptic line didn't end the chaos. It started a storm. And the next leak would reveal the real battle behind the scenes. A battle that showed Scott had been fighting for the story long before the movie reached the public. The first leak hit right after Scott's message. Insiders claimed he warned the studio months earlier that the script drifted from the world he built. He pointed out scenes that broke the emotional core, but nothing changed. The studio pushed ahead without fixing any of his concerns. Reports said Scott urged them to remove entire sequences that twisted the lore. He wanted the human pain behind the animatronics, not quick scares. When his notes were ignored, the tension behind the scenes escalated fast. This wasn't a small disagreement, it was a clash over the soul of the story. One leak described Scott walking out of a meeting saying the movie no longer felt like FNAF. Fans grabbed onto that line because it explained every problem they noticed. The viewership collapse suddenly made sense. This wasn't a creative misstep, it was a project built against Scott's warnings. The leak flipped the narrative. Fans realized Scott tried to protect the story, but was pushed aside. And that truth raised a bigger question. If they ignored him once, what else had the studio taken over without him? More insiders stepped forward, confirming Scott didn't stay quiet. He confronted the creators directly, calling out choices that stripped away the meaning behind the story. He told them the heart of the franchise had been buried under empty scenes that ignored everything fans cared about. This wasn't rage, it was disappointment. Scott reminded them FNAF wasn't built on noise or spectacle, it was built on guilt, loss, and mystery. The film tossed those elements aside, and he pushed back. But the studio insisted audiences wanted something bigger, not deeper. Fans later learned Scott offered to rewrite parts of the script for free. Even then, the studio rejected the idea, focused only on deadlines and marketing. That decision became a turning point once the details leaked online. When fans saw how much Scott tried to fix, the collapse in viewership felt justified. It wasn't just a bad movie, it was a story mishandled by people who didn't understand the world they were shaping. The backlash turned into a movement almost overnight. Hashtags like #JusticeForScott and #NotMyFNAF2 surged as fans united. Artwork comparing Scott's original vision to the studio's version spread everywhere, showing how far the movie drifted. YouTubers released breakdowns that gained millions of views, explaining why the sequel felt disconnected. Fans posted edits pointing out every missing detail and every forced rewrite. The community was rebuilding the real lore, while viewership for the film dropped even lower. Former collaborators stepped in, reminding fans that Scott never treated FNAF like a product. He treated it like something personal and emotional. Their messages fueled the movement even more, turning support for Scott into a full rejection of the sequel. By the end of the week, the situation was out of control. The movie wasn't just failing, it was being abandoned, and the studio had no idea that the worst part was still ahead. After a week of silence, the studio finally released a statement claiming they respected Scott's legacy and supported their creative choices. The message felt cold and distant, offering no clarity or accountability. Fans read it as a dismissal, not an explanation. Replies flooded instantly. Comment sections filled with frustration as fans repeated Scott's quote under every thread. The studio tried to calm the fire, but the tone only made the backlash stronger. Nothing about the message addressed the collapse happening in real time. Then Scott responded with a single line, "Sometimes you can't recognize your own creation anymore." It hit harder than any full explanation. Fans understood exactly what he meant, and media outlets amplified it within minutes. Insiders later said panic hit the studio. Marketing paused, meetings turned tense, and executives argued over who ignored Scott's warnings. But by then, the damage was complete. Viewership had sunk beyond recovery, and Scott's voice carried more weight than the studio's entire campaign. Scott posted again days later, this time sharing a calm reflection on what FNAF was meant to be. He described a world built on emotion, mystery, and quiet fear, not noise or spectacle. Fans felt the difference immediately and rallied behind him. His final line changed everything. "If they won't tell the story right, I will." That sentence reignited hope. Fans began speculating about a reboot, a new game, or a project Scott would guide entirely on his own. Reports from inside the studio said leaders were scrambling. Some pushed to hand Scott full control, while others wanted to delay future plans. But viewership had collapsed beyond saving. Fans moved on, leaving the sequel behind without hesitation. In its place came a wave of fan-made projects that felt closer to Scott's original tone than the studio's version ever did. Scott didn't force a takeover. He simply reminded people what FNAF was meant to feel like, and the community followed. FNAF 2's collapse didn't end the franchise. It exposed how far the story drifted when the creator's voice was ignored. What fans rejected wasn't just a movie, it was a version of the universe that felt empty. Scott's response reshaped everything. Through short, sharp messages, he reminded fans of the world he built, and the community saw the difference instantly. They chose the vision that felt real, not the one shaped by committees. The crash in viewership became a turning point. Fans returned to the tone and mystery they trusted, supporting creators who honored Scott's approach. What rose from the failure wasn't anger alone. It was loyalty to the original storyteller. In the end, Scott proved a simple truth. They can twist the story, shift the tone, or change the script, but they can't erase the heart he built into FNAF. The sequel's collapse didn't close the franchise. It revived it and placed it back in the hands of the person who understood it best.